Take a deep breath. Know that you are loved. Take a deep breath. Know that you are loved. Breathe. You've arrived at the Evolving Lover podcast. This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online. Now, here is your host, the funny, thoughtful, and loving Steve Burford. Enjoy.
I'm here today with David Bruce Leonard, who I met on a Tantra and Sexuality conference in Poland a couple of weeks ago, and I was watching him speak and very drawn to what he does. He works for a company he founded called the Earth Medicine Institute and works also with sacred sexuality. And he's written a book called How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls. So hi to you, David.
Hi, Steve. Good morning. Or good evening, where you are.
Good morning to you in Hawaii, and good evening to me in Central Europe.
Right.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and I was very drawn to your subjects around what you were talking about was how men and women communicate on a very visceral level when it comes down to the body and the mind. And I'd like to talk about some of those things with you today. So
yeah, absolutely.
Perhaps you can give a slight overview of where you've come on your journey with sexuality and what you do in the world right now before we start.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, and I practice and teach Chinese medicine, which involves acupuncture, herbs, massage, diet, and qigong, martial arts. But sexuality is a very important piece of traditional Taoist practices, of which I'm a follower. And I've always, even when I was a teenager, I'm 58 now, but even when I was a teenager, I was actually would read books on Tantra and things way back in the Qing dynasty. So I was always very interested in sacred sexuality. And through my own curiosity about sexuality and through the studying of traditional medicines, I've just really seen how different cultures have created very similar, traditional cultures and traditional medicines have created very similar paradigms around how to navigate our nervous system and how to navigate our sexuality. So it's sort of an ongoing interest of mine, and I think it's really important when dealing with health issues to include sexuality. I don't think that it's something we can avoid navigating in our lives.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's one of those things that we're not really educated on in the mainstream, and we have to really go looking outside of the normal paradigms of where we get our information from to search out what is possible in our sexuality. And it's great that people like yourself are still writing the books that you write and speaking about the things you do, because it's very important for humanity to keep these teachings and alive.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I mean the very same force that when you cut yourself or you scrape yourself that heals your body is the same force that runs our libido or our sex drive. It's identical. There's no difference. It's the same energetic. So to if we want to be happy and healthy and balanced human beings, we have to embrace that force, that energy in us in all the ways that it manifests.
Totally agree. So from what you were speaking to in Poland about communication and how it links to Taoism and all these things, could you give a brief overview for people who weren't there, which is thousands of us, what you were talking about, especially when it comes to how males and females typically communicate in a relationship?
One of the things that I've learned in studying Taoist paradigms is the Taoists have a belief or a thought or perhaps a hallucination, I don't know, but it's a perception that Men and women navigate their body and their sexuality somewhat differently. In a lot of ways, we're very, very similar. In a lot of ways, we're actually quite different. And from a Taoist perspective, a woman is most vulnerable between her knees and her navel, so her pelvis. This is the most vulnerable place for a woman. That's where her yoni is. That's where her vulnerability lies, and that is also where her power lies. In Chinese medicine, the pelvis is ruled by the kidneys, and that has to do with power, but also security, emotional security, and stability in the world. As men, our vulnerability in general, there's obviously a lot of exceptions to this, but in general, as a gender, our vulnerability as men is between our neck and our navel. So our yoni, so to speak, our vulnerable places in our chest. And in Chinese medicine, that is both esteem, like our self-identity, our self-esteem, but also grief. The lungs rule grief. So as a man, we emit from our pelvis. Our energy goes outward from our pelvis and comes into our chest. As a woman, her energy goes out from her chest and comes into her pelvis. So in some ways we line up. When my energy as a man goes out, it wants to go straight for a woman's pelvis, her yoni. When a woman's energy goes out, it wants to go straight for my chest or my heart. So when we're navigating a sexual relationship with another gender, we, as men, the first place we want to go is to her pelvis. And the first place she wants to go is to our chest. So, and we see this all the time. You know, our men and women navigate their sexuality and their sex drive differently. So there's an old saying, men try to get sex through love, and women try to get love through sex, or is it vice versa? Anyway, men use sex as a way to access, women use sex as a way to access love through men, and men use love as a way to access sex through women. So, if I'm a man and the first place my intuition wants to take me is to a woman's pelvis, what I've got to do is I've got to go through her heart first and then down. If a woman wants to get to my heart, which is where she first wants to go, she has to access through my pelvis first and then up. So there's a match, there's a sort of an alignment in all that. So if I want to be an intelligent man or a man that's a bit savvy, I don't go straight for her pelvis because that's going to shut her down. You know, women often talk about men who are grabby. My instinct as a man is to go straight there. And her instinct as a woman is to go straight to my heart or to my chest. If I aggress at a woman's pelvis, if I really am very aggressive towards her pelvis, she will shut down. And you'll see a lot of women are traumatized in their pelvis. It's very, very common. Even if they haven't been assaulted, there's a lot of even just psychological, physiological trauma from living on the planet with men. A lot of men are traumatized in their heart and their chest. We, as men, we tend to, our tendency is not to be able to access our yoni or our chest because it's traumatized. So if I want to navigate to a woman's pelvis in a relationship, I have to be very gentle with her pelvis and with her stability and security. If a woman wants to navigate to my chest, she has to be very gentle not to do things that bruise my esteem or my self-image. So they say that, what do they say? Women need to be desired, men need to be admired. And that's a difference between the genders.
I'm just wondering from my point of view, and wonder if you agree, is this awareness is very good, and I think as a man, I'm fully aware, growing up as a man, that you can feel there's this huge amount of energy around the pelvis area and the groin, just wanting to be, like you say, go towards a woman's pelvis. And that energy is very strong, and I think this awareness is crucial, but I don't believe, and I don't know if you believe, if this is set in stone. And I think for me, a crucial healing in the world is to be aware of what's happening and then form more balance in your body, and for men to be more attached to their hearts and opening their hearts rather than emitting all of their energy from their pelvis.
Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. Absolutely. That's where our healing is. Women's healing is in their pelvis, and men's healing, our healing is in our chest. Which doesn't, it doesn't change our gender, but absolutely, that's where our work is as men. Is we need to crack open our chest and feel what we're feeling. Because many men, I've done hundreds of men's groups, hundreds, and I've sat in and seen so many men do their work, and without fail, every single time, the number one thing that I see in men who are doing their work is they don't feel good enough. That our esteem, it's just there under the surface.
Yeah, I remember you saying in Poland that inside every man there's this little boy who just does not think he's good enough.
Yeah, and that's been my experience, except for sociopaths, but they don't usually come to men's circles. So yeah, there's this need to heal, and that I think you're absolutely right. That's where our healing is. If we're going to be more balanced, if I'm going to become fluent in the language of the feminine, not only in the world but also in myself, I have a language of the feminine in me that I need to embrace. I can only do it in a masculine way, but that doesn't mean that I don't need to do it. It's really crucial for me to find balance, to embrace that little boy and that inner feminine without getting too schmaltzy.
Yeah, and I think it's critical for everyone, absolutely critical for everyone to listening, that we know this is the biggest healing in the world at the moment on an individual level. The realization that this masculine unconscious pelvic power is causing the wars and the rape and the destruction on this planet, and with this awareness that we can switch to our hearts is critical.
This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online.
I totally agree, but it has to happen in a way. It can't happen the way women wished it would happen. It has to happen. I cannot embrace my feminine side in any way besides through my masculinity. Otherwise, what my experience with men is when they embrace their feminine side without really embracing their masculine side simultaneously, it goes into shadow. They become passive aggressive. One of the things that I think is so powerful about the work I'm seeing men doing now, as opposed to 20 years ago, is they're not trying to become like women, and they're not trying to be the way women wished they were. They're becoming the way they are, and from that foundation, from that core masculinity, they're really embracing their feelings, and they're feeling them the way a man feels them.
How does that look on a when you meet?
Like, in other words, like in the 70s and the 80s, when a lot of young males were raised by feminists, women are rightfully afraid of men. Men can be very scary, and a lot of feminists raised their sons to reject their own masculinity, their own fire in the pelvis, the fire in the belly. You know, a lot of women that I know wish men did not have that kind of sexual aggression, wish we didn't have it. But it's there and it's built into us and we can't ignore it. All we can do is navigate it in a healthy way, which doesn't mean I have to act on it, right? I'm a man and my sacred work is to hold space and hold a container for a woman's femininity or for a woman's totality. But that doesn't mean that I don't want to fuck all these women that I see. I do. That's part of my masculinity. So from my perspective, I have to acknowledge that before I can even begin to embrace my feminine side. Because if I pretend that I don't want to have sex with all these women, I become passive aggressive. I will deny parts of myself that are true. So for me to embrace my feminine side, I really have to simultaneously embrace a healthy masculine, which means acknowledging my masculine nature, and then from that place, feeling my feminine side.
So, I mean, what for guys listening especially, is that acknowledgement that men do want to sleep with everyone.
And of course, we're generalizing, not all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're
definitely
there is still
generalizing.
I think it's this biological thing that we just want that's inbuilt in us that is predatory and wants to spread our seed as far and wide as possible. And I think this is just nature. And so you're saying acknowledge that, but
it doesn't have to run us.
Yeah.
But if I see a lot of men, now it's a lot better now than it was 20 years ago in the sacred sexuality and tantra movement. There was a lot of men who were denying that was their nature. And so they were kind of, even to themselves, they were kidding themselves. And they were what I call leaking. Their sexuality was leaking. They were basically being passive aggressive. They were telling women that they weren't, that they were really spiritual and they weren't really into this. They were doing it for the higher good, the higher self, without simultaneously acknowledging that they just wanted to have sex with them. And to me, it's about acknowledging what's true, and only when I go to what's true can I then accept myself and make choices around my behavior. If I deny that I have a fiery sexuality in myself, it's going to come out sideways, and it's not healthy.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So it means coming from the truth. And for a woman, she wants whatever her truth is. Some women have fiery sexualities and some don't. Many men have fiery sexualities, but some don't. And whatever, the point is to come from a place inside that is genuine and real, like Andrew talks about. We live from a place that's genuine, that's unpretentious, and as transparent as we can make it. Without shame and without apology and without arrogance, just our truth. And when we bring that to the world, into a relationship, I see relationships blossom because there's this sigh, this exhale, like, oh, I can be myself with this person,
Yeah, I mean, part of that truth is just having real self-awareness of who you are and what you are, from a deeper level, like we've just been talking about, of how our pelvis and hearts link up to just knowing who you are on a day-to-day basis. This innate self-awareness that you can bring into a relationship is pretty crucial.
Yeah, and just with the self-acceptance that go, a lot of young males who were raised by feminists believed that their male sexuality was something to be ashamed of, that was shameful, that they did not want to be one of those guys that was destroying the planet. And we can be who we are without being one of those guys who destroys the planet. We don't have to be the way women would like us to be. We can embrace a healthy masculinity. Our inclination is to protect women. For every wolf out there, there's 10 sheepdogs. And there are, the problem for women is it's hard to tell them apart by looking at them. But I see it in men's groups all the time. For every predator out there, there's 10 of us who are sheepdogs. And we also have an inner predator, but we make choices to be sheepdogs, to protect women. And that's part of a healthy masculine. That is something that we bring to the table in relationship that's a great gift, is the ability to hold space for women, to control our erotic drives, to to set boundaries, to create a container so that the feminine can really blossom.
Yeah, and it's like we mentioned at the beginning, this conscious masculine is just the awareness of our hearts and opening up our hearts before letting our pelvis run all over the place.
Right. Yeah, and also knowing that our pelvis wants to run all over the place, but also, I used to watch it in my stepson. He was 5 years old, and used to watch him shut his chest down. He would shut down. That's very the same way a woman will shut down her pelvis when she's threatened. A man will shut down his chest. And I believe that's just my opinion, but I believe that evolved because we were bred to be warriors. We were bred to protect the tribe and to kill things and to kill other people, to protect our families. And we couldn't do that if we couldn't shut down our emotions. That's what warriors do, is we shut down our emotions instinctively so that we could evolve. Well, now we don't, if we're not in a situation that requires violence, we don't need to do that. So we can reclaim our chest, and I used to say to my stepson, you keep your chest open and stay strong. In other words, you can feel what you're feeling. It's not intuitive for us, but that's where our work is. We have to crack open our chest. And oftentimes it happens through heartbreak. When men's hearts are broken, that's when they heal. That's when they learn to feel what's going on. So, yeah. So it's really important to feel our feelings and to feel our soft, gentle side, and also to recognize that we do have an aggressive side, and we can only feel those feelings in a masculine way because that's the body that we're in.
I think you were starting to say there, but what are some of the ways that men can start opening their hearts more, whether they're in a relationship or they might not be in a relationship?
Some of it is through connecting with other men who are similar, finding men that are models. Andrew and I really connected at the conference. I really like the way that man shows up. I think it's very genuine. Finding men that we resonate with, men who are not ashamed of their masculinity or their femininity. There's a group called Mankind Project I've worked with for many years, and they do initiations for adult males. You can find them at mankindproject.org. And Mankind Project has initiated over 75,000 men all over the planet, and getting them to reclaim both their balls and their heart, together. Another thing is to just be willing to self-confront. As guys, we always want to look good. We always want to look competent, and we especially want to look competent when we're not. But, we can put on our big boy pants, and we can be a grown-up and look in the mirror and acknowledge the truth of who we are. It doesn't mean going into shame. It means just recognizing that we are sometimes flawed, and sometimes we're, sometimes we fall short, and accepting that of ourselves and caring about ourselves, and while still taking responsibility for our quality of life and for our behavior. So I think those are really important pieces in the reclamation of what I call the sacred masculine.
And what does a sacred masculine man really look like to you in 2014? Because there's so much confusion, I think, from a young age, from what a man is supposed to be like in society. We might take our role models from James Bond or like sports stars, or
right.
Where do we get our role models in society? We can't take it from presidents. We can't take it from anyone like that.
No. No, we can't. I used to laugh. We'd see these hero movies where these guys would kill, 100 people, take their lives, and then make love with the woman at the end and be totally comfortable. And that's not real life. Men, when they take that many lives, are traumatized. They sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not, but there's almost always trauma unless they're a psychopath. So that's a healthy man is going to be traumatized. So you're right. There's no role models.
No, we live in this paradigm where the narrative of the man, can't really call him a healthy masculine man, particularly, is just warped, and we don't know what we're supposed to be.
Well, I think it's important to remember that cultural models I think it's worth looking at things cross-culturally. What do all cultures have? What do male role models in all cultures have in common? It's like the hero's journey, right? That Joseph Campbell talks about. That is a really healthy masculine model. In men's circles, we have 4 archetypes. We have the king, the lover, the warrior, and the magician. And those are all healthy aspects of a male psyche. I think looking to those archetypes is a good place to start. A healthy king is a sovereign who blesses. He's somebody that, and there's plenty of other male archetypes. Those are just 4 of them. A healthy lover is somebody that can feel his chest, can open his chest. A healthy warrior is somebody that can draw a line in the sand. A man that self-confronts, who says, yes, I fucked up. I'm sorry. I apologize. I will do my best to make it right. I will do my best not to have that happen again. And also is willing to, classically willing to fight and die, for his family or for those he loves. That may not be physically, maybe it's metaphorical. Maybe it's just like, I'm willing to sacrifice my arrogance to be real for my family, And then a magician is the man. A healthy magician is a man that uses his intellect, that has discerning intelligence, that engages in the world. So in the world in a way that's savvy, in a way that's skilled. I think those archetypes are a good place to start looking. And there's a lot of books out there on healthy masculinity. One of the things that I happen to believe is that there is a bias against the healthy masculine in the press. That we have, on one side, we have women who are angry, who are feminists, understandably angry, but still angry and don't want to hear about men's vulnerability. And on the other hand, we have the sort of macho Bruce Willis guys that are, the kind of cartoon characters in the films. But very rarely do we see, in Western media, do we see images of healthy men. When's the last time you saw a film where a man was healthy? A leading actor was playing the role of a healthy man. Sometimes they're like, Harrison Ford he'll protect his family, but he's not in touch with his vulnerability, So I think that there's a shortage of these, both from a traditional perspective, but also from a backlash from feminism, because women don't want to hear how, a lot of women don't want to hear about, did you ever watch a feminist deal with a sensitive man? They beat the crap out of him, right? So I think that, it's very complex. I don't mean to oversimplify things, but I think that we have to really rethink, if we're going to create a healthy society, we have to really rethink our gender roles and really self-confront, both as men and women, as to what we like and want.
I completely agree. It's just a search to find out what we want, where we take our ideas from.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to find men that are similar. One of my personal sort of missions is to bring together the sacred masculine movement with the sacred sexuality movement, to bring an authentic masculinity to the Tantra movement, because it's only then that that we can really heal. You know, men need to heal also. And they may need to heal in a way that's a little bit different than the way women heal. And I think we can only mentor each other as men. You know, we can't be mentored by women, just the way women cannot be mentored by us. You know, because we know what it feels like to feel like a man. And women knows what it feels like to feel like a woman. So I think, you know, at first feminism's really important. I have no beef with feminism at all. It's huge, and it's crucial that we embrace feminist ideology. At the same time, there's things that feminism has overlooked that we can no longer afford to ignore, especially in the sacred sexuality movement, because stuff goes into shadow around sex so easily. And if we can't embrace the sacred masculine as men involved in sacred sexuality, we're never going to come home. We're never going to find ourselves.
Yeah, I agree that it's going to take men coming together and in these groups and really working through stuff. And I think I'm called to it in some way, to do it myself as well, as to start these movements of men to really go deeper inside themselves and heal what is going on in men's groups.
Yeah, and we don't have to apologize for being men. And we don't have to apologize for being masculine. I mean, we can. I've certainly apologized for the things that my gender has done over the millennia. But that doesn't mean that I apologize for who I am. We cannot get around our shadow without embracing who we are as men. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and the fundamental things that you embrace as a man, could you sum them up?
Yeah. Can I read something from my book?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. A healthy masculinity is the same quality that draws a line in the sand based on principle. A healthy masculinity values principle over power. A healthy masculine aggression is energized and has vigor. It is a quality that allows us to hold space, to know who we are, and to create deep commitment. That is also one of the great strengths of masculinity, is deep, abiding commitment, which is part of our nature, and we'll see it in you see it in soldiers and loyalty, and the way men will take care of their families. You know, they'll work 16-hour days for 30 years and then die 7 years sooner than their partner to provide for their family. Create deep commitment. It has tenacity and perseverance. It prevents us from betraying ourselves. It keeps us going even when it would be easier to quit. A healthy aggression is based on deep values, on principles. It sets and holds boundaries. It contains things. It is the quality that gives us the courage to look into the mirror. Without reasonable and healthy aggression, we have no container in which to hold our families and ourselves. Without healthy aggression, we could become either passive-aggressive or we become hostile. So you could change the word aggression for masculinity. But a healthy masculinity has vigor, it builds things, it creates things, it sets boundaries, and it creates really deep and powerful commitments. And it works from a place of integrity rather than expediency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's so many questions that arise from it that we probably don't even have time to cover them all. But I think, the aggression masculine thing is a big point, and especially when you're in a relationship, how much, especially it's the choice between monogamous and polyamorous relationships and boundaries on a monogamous relationship, and where you let your aggression come in. When other men get involved.
Aggression may be the wrong word too. I wrote that book 6 years ago, and you could call it vigor. It's not aggression as in aggressing over a boundary. It's about having balls, keeping our balls, doing the right thing. Like, if I may want to have sex with this woman, but I can see that she is not ready for that. Even if she says she is, I can see it. What do I do? Do I have the balls to not have sex with her? In other words, do I have the balls to do the right thing, to stay in integrity? That's a form of aggression, by saying no. by postponing my gratification. You know, that's a form of vigor. That's a form of strength. And a lot of women I know crave that in men. You know, and men, you know, in some ways we've been screwed. We were trained by feminists to think that, you know, all this masculine stuff is bad. But at the same time, we see women who are attracted to the bad boys and they want that stuff. You know, it's not that they want the unhealthy masculine. They're looking for the healthy masculine, but the only way they see it is in an unhealthy masculine. So they're attracted to it.
Yeah. And for me, this vigor means intuition of the heart. In a strong container. A feminized man would have no container for that heart. A masculine man can make strong a masculized man, if you want, or somebody that embraces his masculine vigor can make strong and difficult choices around those issues while still feeling all the vulnerability, while still feeling his heart. I can, you know, in relationships as men, many men I know will stay with women longer than they should, you know. They have this emotional attachment to women and they know they should leave, but they don't have the balls to do it. When that man grabs his balls, he will leave that woman if it's not right for him. Even if his heart cracks open, he will still leave, even if he doesn't want to. He'll still leave because it's not the right thing. And to have the strength to do the right thing in spite of what we're feeling is at the core of a healthy masculinity. It's about withholding gratification, about working from principle. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. But that's my honest perception of those things. Yeah, I completely resonate with everything you've said today. I'm sure we could go on for another couple of hours, but we'll cut it there and maybe do another one in the future. Where can people find out more about your stuff and your book as well?
The book is called How to Worship the Goddess and Keep Your Balls, A Man's Guide to Sacred Sex, and that can be found on Amazon. And our website is earthmedicineinstitute.com.
Yeah, I fully recommend checking his stuff out. I hope you've enjoyed listening to us today, and thank you so much, David, for taking your time.
Thank you, Steve. Great to meet you.
This transmission is brought to you by the Online University of Love and Sexuality. We would love you to receive all of our podcasts and videos at www.uls.online.